Just wanted to go over how I went about extending the cable length on my wired Carrera digital controller. I looked online and there was not a whole lot of information. I didn't see anything on YouTube that was helpful, and there was some info in forums from about 7 to 10 years ago, but there wasn't too much detail other than people saying they did it, and there are some things you got to be careful with to get it right. So figured I'd put a video together. So as you know, these cords are pretty short, so extending these is a good idea. Obviously you could go wireless, but I like the idea of having a direct connection, not having to worry about charging a wireless controller. And these things are pretty cheap as it is, so didn't see a reason to go put out more money for a wireless controller for something so cheap. All the higher end controllers are wired, and for a reason. So anyway, these controllers use MMJ style phone jacks. I don't know if they're used for phones anywhere, but very hard to find these style connectors, at least everywhere I looked. It's similar to a phone jack, but it has an offset latch, and it's a little wider than a standard phone jack. Most phone jacks have 4 conductors. This has the ability to have 6, although Carrera only uses 4, the 4 center ones. So that's good in that it allows us to adapt it to a standard phone jack cord with a little effort. So I'll go through the steps on how to do that. Okay, so there are 2 different options when you do this. One option is to cut off the MMJ that's on the Carrera controller. And that's probably the simplest. So the drawback in doing that is when you put the new connector on, it will fit into the control unit, but it won't really latch. It is a nice tight fit, so the fact that it doesn't have a clicking latch is not a big deal, but it really depends if you want to keep the stock MMJ connector on there or not. So if you want to keep the stock connector on there, when you use this coupler, this is a standard female phone line coupler. So you can insert the MMJ in there. You just have to take a Dremel and do some modification to the plastic to clear the offset latch. So on this one I did the modification, maybe hard to see, but the top corner there I cleared away plastic so this MMJ can insert in there. Again, the latch doesn't really latch. There may be a way to do that when you Dremel the plastic so that the latch actually works, but it's a tight enough fit that's not a big deal. You get a nice snug plug, and if you are worried, you could always add tape or even glue if you wanted. So that's one method if you want to keep this connector. Well, the only method, I guess, if you want to keep this connector. The other option, if you're okay with getting rid of this weird, hard to find connector, would be to cut this off and put on a RJ11 connector. So got this bag off Amazon for it's like $5 or $10. You can see the part number there, maybe. So yeah, a bunch of just 50 pack of connectors. Now you want to make sure it's the 6P4C type connector, so it's 6P width. So it's the same width as the MMJ, but it only has the 4 center connectors, which is all we need. And then the main difference being that the latch for this is in the center, like a standard phone line compared to the MMJ where the latch is offset. So what we will do is cut this off, put this guy on, and then we have to do something similar to the actual extension cable. So I'll explain that now. Okay, for the actual extension, you could get any phone line extension you want. This is a 25-foot coiled. It comes with the two RJ11 4P, so these are only 4P in width compared to the 6P on the controller as well as the replacement connector. We'll probably cut off one end of these and have to put the 6P on the end, and I'll explain that shortly. But you could use any type of phone line extension. Now the tricky part here with doing this is you got to pay very close attention to the polarity of your wires, because a weird thing regarding phone cables is that they switch polarity, especially in this type of coupler, as well as if you look at the cable itself. If you hold these in identical orientations, so in this one here, the black wire is on the far right, and on this same other end, the black wire is on the left. So that's going to come into play when we do the wiring. Got to pay very close attention to that. So like I said, you can keep this on and modify the coupler, or if you don't want to modify the coupler, you can cut this off and put a standard phone jack on. So telephone jack. So I'm going to do that option. I'm going to cut this off and proceed in that manner so we don't have to modify more of these. Okay, to start, so you want to take your controller end and cut this off. Now you want to pay attention with the latch up top. You want to look closely at how the conductors are oriented. So in this case, the black is the furthest away from me, or if you're plugging it in, it's on the left side. So you want to remember that when you plug this into the control unit, the black conductor is on the left side when plugging that in. Very important. So we want to make sure after we use the coupler and the extension, when we're plugging into the control unit with the end of our extension, we want to make sure that black is on the correct side. So step one, point of no return here, would be to cut off the existing MMJ connector. So let's go ahead and do that. Now this crimping tool has a cutter and stripper as well, so I'm going to use that. There's a blade on this side, a single blade on this side. I'm sorry, two blades on that side, single blade on this side. So you want the side you're cutting will be the single blade, and the side you're stripping is the double blade. So you want to make sure you get your sides right when you do that. Go ahead and cut and strip. So there you go. Now those are a little longer than they need to be in order to insert into the new 6P connector. So I'm going to trim those down with scissors. Let me go get some scissors. Okay, so I want to trim them about a little over an 1/8 inch in length. But what's important is you get them all squared at the end. Nice straight cut across the end. So when they go in the connector, they're all sitting flush into the connector. Okay, so now the next step, again, you want to make sure you're oriented correctly with the black facing away from me when the latch is up. And just doing a trial fit right now. Push it in there, and far as you can go. Takes a bit of pressure. You want to make sure you got all four of the individual cables in the 4 slots in the connector. So when you crimp it, everything is all aligned. Basically, when you crimp it, you're pushing these metal bladed contacts into the wire, piercing the insulation. That's how it makes the electrical connection. So everything looks good there. We're going to go ahead and crimp this. Make sure you put it in the 6P slot and orient it correctly for your crimper. And once everything's all ready to go, just crimp away. And there you go. So we got rid of our hard to find MMJ type connector, and now we got a standard 6P phone jack type connector on our controller. Okay, now step 2 is the coupler. So we didn't have to modify this because we changed out this connector. Now, one thing to know about these couplers, like I said, they change polarity. So you would think, let me demonstrate on this one. You would think when you plug this in, if the black connector is on this side of the coupler, that it would route over to this side, to the same side of the coupler, you know, straight pairing of wires. But that's not the case. They crisscross inside this little coupler. So my black wire being down, furthest wire down here, actually crosses and is now the furthest wire up here. So it's important to know that they all the wires cross. I'm just showing the 2 outer wires, but the inner wires do that as well. So to make it clear, our black wire is right there on that side, and on that side it's in that position. All right, one thing to add here, apparently some of these couplers do reverse polarity and others do not. So found that out the hard way. You could either do a continuity check with a multimeter to see if they do that, or you can just snap these open. It's easy enough, and look inside, and you can see the colored wires, see if they cross over or not. So I bought 2 different brands. They both look identical from the outside. The packaging doesn't indicate anything about it. So on a phone line, they work either way. Not sure why they do that, whereas they don't label it and don't make it clear. But anyway, just something to keep in mind. So you may or may not have this situation going on. There may be a situation where it goes straight, and you know, just something to pay attention to. Either crack it open. It's easy enough. You just squeeze the plastic, and then you can inspect. There, yellow is on that side, and black is on that side. So that's a crossover. Actually, these were 2 identical brands. I take that back. These 2 identical brands were the crossover, and this one is different. So anyway, keep it in mind. So then you take your extension cable, which I'm assuming it already has phone jacks on each end. If not, you would install them accordingly. But now we're going to take the end that can plug into this coupler with the black wire aligned with the black position on this coupler. So again, these ends are different. So if you plug in the wrong end, it's not to say it won't work, but you got to be cognizant of where the wire's going on the control unit. So to keep it simple, we'll go black to black, and we'll make sure we get the right end of the extension. So the black end is aligned there. and we're good to go there. So we're good all the way up until the control unit now. Now here's why you got to pay attention here. So if I look at this end now, and I pretend I'm plugging it into the control unit, the black wire is on the right side when I'm looking at it that way. But I know from what I said previously, when I plug the controller directly into the control unit, the black wire should be on the left side. So because of that, we got to snip this end off, and we'll just put a new 6P connector on there, making sure we flip the wire, and now the black wire will be on the correct side. So I'm going to go ahead and strip that. Okay. Again, I'm going to trim this down a little bit, making sure it's a nice straight cut. Okay, and we're going to get a new blank 6P4C connector and put it on the correct orientation, making sure if we were to plug it in the control unit, black wire is now on the left, as it should be. So just take your time, make sure you insert these correctly. You know, the wires can crisscross inside there if you're not careful, but it's relatively easy to do. So once you're fully inserted, get your crimper, again, put it in the 6P slot. Make sure you're fully inserted before you crimp, otherwise you're going to damage it. And go ahead and do the crimp. And there we go. So we should now be ready to plug this in the control unit and try it out.